Section 5. The Assyrian Empire. The line of royalty Hammurabi initiated did not continue to rule Babylonia for long. Over the next several hundred years, a number of groups governed sections of what had previously been the Babylonian Empire. However, a warlike people called the Assyrians created the next great empire in Mesopotamia. Assyria lay to the north of Babylon. The Assyrians had lived in Mesopotamia for a long time, briefly establishing their own empire before Hammurabi conquered them. They rose to power again toward 900 BCE, when a series of Assyrian rulers began training an army for war, in hopes of expanding their territory. The Assyrians were feared for their military might and their cruelty. Their greatest achievements were their new weapons and war strategies. They perfected the use of horses and iron weapons in battle. They also became greatly skilled at siege warfare, a strategy in which army soldiers camp outside of a city and repeatedly attack it until the city falls. The Assyrians developed new ways of attacking cities. For instance, they developed new types of battering rams. These long, heavy-wheeled beams were used for breaking down walls. The Assyrians also built movable towers that were rolled up to a city's walls so that soldiers could climb over the walls. The Assyrians were often ruthless. They might force entire populations to leave areas they had recently conquered. The Assyrians spread tales of their cruelty far and wide, and creating fear among their enemies became part of the Assyrian military strategy. At its peak, the Assyrian Empire extended from Egypt to the Persian Gulf. This vast territory was difficult to control and defend. This carving shows an army using a battering ram to break through the walls of a city. This was one aspect of siege warfare. Section 6. Life under Assyrian rule. Powerful kings ruled the Assyrian Empire. Religion, however, remained extremely crucial to social and political order. Even kings were obliged to obey the gods. The Assyrians believed that their kings were special beings, so they built beautiful, elaborate palaces to honor their rulers. The great palace in the capital city of Nineveh had many rooms. Some palaces were built on tall mounds to raise them above the surrounding buildings. Huge sculptures of winged bulls or lions with human faces stood at the entrances. Like other societies in Mesopotamia, the Assyrians dug canals to irrigate their land and keep it fertile for farming. They also developed some of the first aqueducts, which are pipes or channels used to carry water. A system of canals and aqueducts brought drinking water to Nineveh from 30 miles away. Assyrian artisans were known for their two-dimensional sculptures called bas-reliefs. Many of their most famous bas-reliefs were on palace walls. Amazingly realistic, they often depicted scenes of the king hunting, fighting in battle, or enjoying family life. The Assyrians used ivory to decorate thrones, beds, and chairs. The Assyrian Empire lasted about 300 years. At its height, it stretched from Egypt to the Persian Gulf. But its weakness lay in being too vast a territory to control. The army was stretched thin, and the Assyrians could not fight off opposing neighbors. In 612 BCE, a combined army of Babylonians, Scythians, and a group called the Medes attacked Nineveh, permanently breaking the Assyrians' reign over the land. Section 7. The Neo-Babylonian Empire. After the fall of Nineveh, the Babylonians once again took control of Mesopotamia, establishing a new empire called the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Neo means new. This new empire's most well-known king was Nebuchadnezzar. He was a ruthless military leader who reigned from 605 to 561 BCE. Nebuchadnezzar expanded his empire whenever possible. He drove the Egyptians out of Syria and conquered part of Canaan, present-day Israel, which was the home of the Israelites, or Jews. When the Israelites rebelled, he took most of them captive and brought them to Babylonia. Many of them were never able to return to their homeland. As a military leader, Nebuchadnezzar felt that it was essential to keep the capital city of Babylon safe, so he had inner and outer walls built around it. These walls were so thick that 2 chariots could pass each other on top of them. Towers for archers to stand on were constructed on the walls. Finally, a moat was dug around the outer wall and filled with water. During peacetime, people used bridges to cross the moat and enter the city. In times of war, however, the bridges were dismantled. The Ishtar Gate was one of the entrances into Babylon. Each gate was dedicated to a Babylonian god or goddess. Ishtar was the goddess of war and love. Section 8. Life in the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Nebuchadnezzar worked hard to restore the splendor that Babylon had enjoyed under Hammurabi. From 605 to 562 BCE, he rebuilt the city's ziggurat, a huge structure that was several stories high. The Babylonians referred to it as the house of the platform of heaven and earth. Nebuchadnezzar decorated his palace with lush gardens planted on rooftops and tall terraces so that greenery would cascade down the walls. A watering system kept the plants fresh and green. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon became so famous, and this human-made display is considered one of the great wonders of the ancient world. The Babylonians were also skilled in mathematics and astronomy. They created the first sundial, a device that uses sun to tell time. They made discoveries that many believe led to our modern system of a 60-minute hour and 7-day week. The Neo-Babylonian Empire lasted only 75 years. Then, in 539 BCE, a new conqueror from the Persian Empire named Cyrus swept into Babylon from the east. The Persians came from present-day Iran. For about 200 years, they ruled the most powerful empire in the world, until a man named Alexander the Great conquered the Persians. In this lesson, you read about the most important achievements of the 4 empires that once ruled Mesopotamia. The Akkadian Empire. King Sargon created the world's first empire. The Akkadians developed their own language. Artists carved relief sculptures on stone. The Babylonian Empire. King Hammurabi created a code of laws that applied to everyone in the empire. Babylonian agriculture and trade thrived under his rule. The Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians honored their powerful kings with palaces and huge sculptures. They built some of the earliest aqueducts. The Neo-Babylonian Empire. King Nebuchadnezzar restored the splendor of King Hammurabi's time. His Hanging Gardens of Babylon became famous in the ancient world.